In the sweltering summer of 1943, a catastrophic famine is unfolding in Bengal, a region in British India that is home to millions of people. The streets of Calcutta are filling with the desperate and the dying, as the once verdant countryside withers away. An estimated 800,000 to 3. 8 million people are dying from starvation, malaria, and other diseases, their bodies weakened by malnutrition and poverty. Families are disintegrating, as men leave their homes to search for work or join the British Indian Army, leaving behind women and children to fend for themselves. The Bengal famine is a disaster of epic proportions, one that will leave deep scars on the region and its people. The crisis is exacerbated by British wartime policies, which prioritize the needs of the military over those of the civilian population. As the famine worsens, the people of Bengal are struggling to survive, their lives hanging in the balance. The situation is dire and the world is slow to respond. As the famine worsens, the people of Bengal are struggling to survive, their lives hanging in the balance. The situation is dire and the world is slow to respond. In mid-1942, the provincial government imposes interprovincial trade barriers, preventing the flow of food grains between provinces. Anxiety and soaring rice prices triggered by the fall of Burma are underlying reasons for these trade barriers. The central provinces prohibit exports of wheat in January 1942, increasing perceptions of food insecurity. The enclave of wheat-eaters in Greater Calcutta demands more rice precisely when a rice shortage is feared. In July 1942, Bengal and its neighboring provinces ban rice exports, further exacerbating the crisis. Meanwhile, the British Indian government categorizes the population into socioeconomic groups of priority and non-priority classes, based on their relative importance to the war effort. Members of the priority classes receive preferential distribution of goods and services, while the rural poor are left to compete for scarce basic supplies with workers in public agencies, war-related industries, and even politically well-connected middle-class agriculturalists. The Bengal Chamber of Commerce devises a foodstuff scheme to provide rice to workers in high-priority war industries, further redirecting resources away from starving rural districts. Essential workers receive subsidized food, ration cards, and direct allocation of supplies, while the rural poor are left to fend for themselves. As civil unrest escalates with the Quit India movement, the British authorities respond forcefully, imprisoning Congress leaders and suppressing the movement through violent means. The violence is internationally condemned, hardening some sectors of British opinion against India and reducing their willingness to provide famine aid. As the Quit India movement is violently suppressed, the British authorities are becoming increasingly isolated and unsympathetic to the plight of the Indian people. In Bengal, a perfect storm of famine is brewing, fueled by a combination of natural disasters, colonial policies, and wartime disruptions. In October 1942, a devastating cyclone strikes the coastal regions of Midnapore and 24 Parganas, killing 500 people and destroying vast quantities of rice. The cyclone is followed by 3 storm surges that flood large areas of land, damage homes, and destroy crops. The region is already reeling from a severe outbreak of fungal brown spot disease that has afflicted the winter rice crop, reducing yields and exacerbating the food shortage. As the situation deteriorates, the Bengal government is struggling to respond effectively. On July 1, 1942, the government had established price controls for rice, but these controls have the unintended consequence of driving sellers underground, creating a thriving black market. The government's attempts to break the Calcutta market by bringing in rice supplies from other districts are unsuccessful, and prices continue to soar. By March 1943, the price of rice has risen dramatically, and the first reports of death by starvation are beginning to emerge. The government is insisting that the crisis is being caused by speculation and hoarding, but this propaganda is failing to convince the public. Meanwhile, the British War Cabinet is refusing to allocate funds to import grain, citing insufficient shipping and the need to prioritize military operations. Viceroy Linlithgow is warning of a looming famine, but his appeals are being ignored. The colony is not permitted to spend its own sterling reserves or use its own ships to import food, and the British government is rejecting offers of food shipments from other nations. As the famine deepens, the British authorities are becoming increasingly callous, with Winston Churchill himself expressing a desire to punish the Indian people for their perceived disloyalty. The consequences of these policies will be catastrophic, and the people of Bengal are about to face one of the darkest periods in their history. The British government's refusal to provide aid is a stark reminder of the brutal realities of colonial rule and the devastating impact it can have on the most vulnerable populations. As the famine tightens its grip on Bengal, the consequences of the British government's policies are becoming brutally apparent. By May 1943, 6 districts Rangpur, Mymensingh, Bakarganj, Chittagong, Noakhali, and Tipura are reporting deaths by starvation, with Chittagong and Noakhali being the hardest hit. The streets of Calcutta are filling with the desperate and the dying, as people flock to the city in search of food and relief. The hospitals are overwhelmed with patients lying on the floors, their bodies emaciated, their eyes sunken. The Famine Inquiry Commission will later describe the victims as living skeletons. The death toll is mounting, with estimates suggesting that between 0, 8 and 3, 8 million people will eventually succumb to the famine. The rural poor are being devastated, as they are forced to sell their belongings, their livestock, and even their children in a desperate bid to survive. The social fabric of Bengal is beginning to fray, as families are torn apart, and women and children are forced into prostitution and exploitation. The British government's response is woefully inadequate, with relief efforts coming too late and medical supplies being diverted to the military. As the summer of 1943 wears on, the situation is becoming increasingly dire. The monsoon rains are bringing some relief, but they are also exacerbating the spread of disease, particularly malaria, which is sweeping through the countryside like a deadly plague. The lack of sanitation, the contamination of water supplies, and the sheer scale of the disaster are creating a perfect storm of suffering. The people of Bengal are being forced to live in a vast charnel house, with corpses lying unburied, and the sick and the dying crowding the streets. The British government's refusal to provide adequate aid is a stark reminder of the brutal realities of colonial rule and the devastating impact it can have on the most vulnerable populations. As the famine deepens, the people of Bengal are being pushed to the very limits of human endurance, and the world is watching in horror as one of the darkest periods in Indian history unfolds. The once thriving villages are now eerily silent, with only the sounds of crying and desperation filling the air, as the survivors struggle to stay alive, and the dead are left to rot in the streets. As the people of Bengal struggle to survive, relief efforts are finally beginning to take shape. In April 1943, the government starts to distribute aid, but it's restricted in scope and largely misdirected, with most of the cash and grain supplies flowing to the relatively wealthy landowners and urban middle class. Private charitable organizations, however, are providing substantial aid, mainly in Calcutta, but also in the countryside. The provincial government of Bengal is setting up gruel kitchens in August 1943, offering food and perhaps a small amount of money in exchange for strenuous work. Field Marshal Archibald Wavell, who replaces Linlithgow as viceroy in October, requests military support for the transport and distribution of crucial supplies, and within 2 weeks, a full division of British soldiers, military lorries, and the Royal Air Force are deployed to distribute relief to even the most distant rural areas. Grain is imported from the Punjab, and medical resources are made more available. The price of rice begins to fall, and the largest rice paddy crop ever seen in Bengal is harvested in December 1943. As the famine slowly begins to recede, the people of Bengal are left to pick up the pieces and rebuild their shattered lives. The economic and social impact of the famine will be felt for years to come, with millions of families ruined and a significant increase in poverty and income inequality. The Bengal famine will go down in history as one of the darkest periods in Indian history, a devastating reminder of the horrors of war and the importance of effective governance. As the years pass, the Bengal famine of 1943 remains a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of war and colonial rule. The memories of starving villagers, orphaned children, and ruined families continue to echo through the streets of Bengal. The economic and social impact of the famine still lingers, a stark testament to the importance of effective governance and humanitarian aid. In the present day, we remember the forgotten famine, a disaster that was all but ignored by the British government at the time. The stories of survivors, the images of emaciated bodies, and the cries of the starving still haunt us. The Bengal famine materials in the South Asian American Digital Archive and other historical records serve as a poignant reminder of the horrors of 1943.